Is now the fourth largest economy in the world, bigger than Japan and bigger than Germany. By size, India looks like an economic giant. And even today, a quarter of India's population, that's hundreds of millions of people, lives on less than $5 a day. That's roughly 400 rupees a day to cover everything from food, transport, rent, healthcare, and education. So this raises a simple but uncomfortable question. So if India is so big economically, then why do so many Indians still live such poor lives? Is it about lack of money, or is it about lack of jobs? Or is the problem something deeper in the structure of the economy itself? In this video, we'll not use slogans or chest thumping. We'll use simple logic to understand this core issue. I mean, how can a $4 trillion economy still leave so many people behind? Now, to understand that, we need to understand something basic. How much an average Indian earns. To find the average income of an Indian, we use a term in the economy known as the GDP per capita. Big term but simple meaning. It just tells us how much income the average person has. So in India, the GDP per capita is around $11,000 in 2024 and is also projected around $12,000 in 2025. And now compare that with other major economies, Japan, which has $51,000, United States, which has around $85,000, and China has about $27,000 as GDP per capita. This means the average Japanese or the average American earns 4 to 8 times more than the average Indian. Now that's the first reason evidently why so many Indians are still poor. The average income of an Indian is simply too low at the global stage. So a natural question follows: if India keeps growing at the current state and closes this income gap, will poverty automatically disappear in India? I mean, with the current India's growth rate of around 4.9%, we could reach China's income levels somewhere around 2030. Reaching Japan levels of income would take another few decades. But let's pause here. Even if India reaches China's income level by 2030, are we automatically safe? Will most Indians be then living secure and comfortable lives? Well, not so fast. There is one more problem in India. The problem is that growth in India is quite concentrated. On paper, the average number looks good, but in real life, experience doesn't change for most of the people. I mean, those people who live in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And you can see this difference clearly in parts of South Delhi, South Mumbai, Bangalore's IT corridors. India already looks developed. People are well off in these localities, but move to tier 2 or tier 3 cities and the picture changes quickly. Fewer quality jobs, weaker public services, limited healthcare access, and lower wages despite rising prices. The gap between headline growth and everyday life is why development in India looks uneven. Now, to be clear, India's growth story is not bad. Startups are growing, digital infrastructure is expanding, the economy is becoming more formal. But again, most of this growth is locked inside few cities, few sectors, and few people. And this brings us to the biggest bottlenecks of all: jobs in India. Now, here's a critical point we need to understand. In India, poverty is not just about unemployment. It's also about the kind of jobs people are forced into. And interestingly, on paper, India's unemployment rate looks low. It is around 4.7% in 2025. At first glance, that sounds reassuring. I mean, only 4.7% of the population in India are unemployed. But this is India, a country of nearly 1.5 billion people. Even a low unemployment rate still means millions without work. I mean, 4.7% of 1.5 billion is still 60 plus million people, and that's around 1.5 times the population of Canada. And the picture becomes more worrying when we look at the younger workforce in India. Youth unemployment, especially for the graduates, is around 16% in India. This is concerning. It tells us something important. It tells us that young Indians who are willing to take jobs are not able to find jobs for themselves. Our young Indians are not smoothly transitioning from education to jobs. The problem goes even deeper. Most Indians who are working, yet they remain poor. I mean, they're not able to live secure and comfortable lives. Why? Because the jobs that are being created are often low paying, informal, unstable, and without long term income growth. So the real question in India is not only about are there enough jobs, it's also for the jobs that are there, do they pay enough to lift people out of poverty? To understand the reality, we need to understand the biggest underlying structural issue with the Indian economy. To understand why poverty persists in India, we also need to understand how the India's workforce is distributed across different sectors in India. I mean, in simple language, we need to understand where most of us Indians are working. What kind of jobs are normally offered to us Indians? Now, to answer this, India's job economy is dominated by two extremes. At one end, there is agriculture, and at the other end, there is the service sector. Together, these two sectors shape the lives of most of the Indians. Let's look at agriculture first. Nearly 46% of India's workforce still depends on agriculture for its livelihood. This means they have agriculture as their primary job. But, agriculture contributes only about 16 to 18% in the India's GDP or the Indian economy. Now, this means that almost half of the country works in a sector that produces less than 1/5 of the total economic growth. In simple terms, this is low productivity, and low poverty means low incomes, high vulnerability, and persistent poverty. Now look at the other extreme, which is the service sector. We are talking about the IT services, the telecom services, the gig work, and the urban services like food delivery and all. Now together, the services sector contributes to around 50% to the India's economy. Now again, they employ only about 30% of the workforce. What about the rest 70%? So here's a structural imbalance we should notice. Agriculture employs too many people but generates too little income, and the services sector generates high income but employs too few people. So we need a filler. This filler, my dear friends, is the manufacturing sector. Now, unluckily, India does not focus too much on its manufacturing sector for whatever reasons. That's a separate video, and the sector can only contribute to 15 to 17% of the India's GDP.
Even though manufacturing is central to economic development, it only employs about 11% to 12% of India's workforce today, which is relatively low for an industrializing economy. That means most Indians still depend on low productivity work in agriculture, and it helps explain why growth hasn't translated to enough quality job creation.
So this is the missing bridge in India. In 2014, we launched the Make in India initiative. The goal was clear: boost manufacturing, create jobs, reduce imports, and increase exports. 10 years later, and here's the reality. Manufacturing share of the economy is lower than when the program started. India still imports most machinery, electronics, and energy. I mean, the idea was not bad, but the execution was weak. The result, millions of Indians are trapped at the bottom while the growth happens at the top. But the majority of people are stuck either in low productivity farms or in low pay informal service jobs. And the sector that usually solves this problem in developing countries, that is the manufacturing sector, remains too small in India. So this is part of my video series on India's economic reality. If you like such videos, do like and subscribe. See you in the next video on why manufacturing never took off in India. See you. Thank you.